some vegetables, a statue, a fiery furnace, and some peanuts. Today on another episode of the Bible in 1 year with the preacher's husband. Today, guys, we're going to start in the book of Daniel, chapters 1 through 3. Tomorrow, we're going to go into Daniel chapter 4, 5, and 6. So, let's get started with our intro for the day. So technically, the book of Daniel is an anonymous book. It's not really attributed to Daniel, but much of it is recorded in the first person as the first person memoirs of Daniel. And Jesus actually affirmed Daniel's authorship in Matthew chapter 24, verse 15. So if you believe Jesus, and Jesus said that Daniel wrote this, then of course Daniel wrote this. I think Daniel wrote it. So there we are. So in summary, Daniel's book here is divided into two parts. The first part, chapters 1 through 6, consists primarily of historical material relating well-known stories about Daniel and his friends' experiences in Babylon under Babylonian and Persian kings. The second division, which is chapters 7 through 12, primarily contains prophetic revelations related to the rise and the fall of earthly empires and the establishment of God's future kingdom on earth. Now, Daniel and his friends, they modeled living as God's people in a pagan world. That's something that we really need to learn from today, in my opinion, here in the United States. They identify areas in which their faith allowed them to make accommodations to the culture and areas in which it was possible for them to do so and remain faithful to the Lord. Learning from their examples will help believers like us know how to live in today's neo-pagan society and under ungodly world domination as we face going forward into the future. So a little takeaway from this before we get started: the kingdoms of this world and the leaders in the countries of this world, no matter how powerful or extensive they may seem to be, they're all temporary. They're not permanent. Only God's kingdom is everlasting. And this realization will help us as believers focus on that which is eternal and not that which is merely temporary. So, that being said, let's jump into Daniel chapter 1. So we get into Daniel chapter 1. He is in captivity, right? And although Daniel recorded these events as taking place in the third year of Jehoiakim, Jeremiah actually wrote that it was in the fourth year when he wrote about this stuff in Jeremiah chapter 25. So Daniel probably used the Babylonian system that did not count a king's first year of accession. So that would give him the third year instead of the fourth year. And Jeremiah probably used the Israelite system of counting, which did include the accession year. So the events took place during the accession year of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, probably when he was still co-regent with his father, and just after the Battle of Carchemish in 605 BC. So here we are in 605 BC, starting this out. So right off the bat, they're in captivity, and there's this language issue, and the chief eunuch gives them names. He gives them different names. He named Daniel Belteshazzar. He named Hananiah Shadrach. He named Mishael Meshach. And he named Azariah Abednego. Now, Daniel and his friends' original names actually honored God, but these names that they were given to them actually honored false gods of Babylon. I did not know that until I got to studying what these names meant. So Daniel meant God is my judge, and he became Belteshazzar, which meant Bel protect him, who was a Babylonian god. Hananiah meant God has been gracious, and he became Shadrach, which meant the command of Aku, who was a Babylonian god. Mishael, who is what God is. That's what it meant. His name meant who is what God is. And he became Meshach, which meant who is what Aku is. Turn this God into a Babylonian god's name. So Azariah, which meant the Lord has helped, became Abednego, which meant servant of Nebo. And we studied about Nebo, the Babylonian god Nebo. So here we are in chapter 1. They've got these new names. So when you see these names, they're interchangeable. They go back and forth in here. And Daniel, he determined that he's not going to defile himself with this king's food. They were given the king's food to eat, but he didn't want to defile himself. He said, think about kosher, think Jew, think, okay, I can't eat this, this is not good for me, but this is. So he's pretty tactful about this, and he asked for permission from the chief eunuch not to defile him by making him eat this food, even though it would have been an honor for most people. For a Jew, this was kind of defiling, it's a desecration. So the eunuch's like, well, what if he sees you looking thinner than all the rest? If you just want to eat vegetables and we got all this meat, we're going to be kind of chubby, but you're going to get all skinny, right? So he's like, well, Daniel's like, just let us test this out. Give us 10 days. Just feed us some veggies, we'll be good. And at the end of 10 days, they actually looked better and healthier than all the other young men who were eating the king's food and all their fattening and nappy weird stuff. So God actually rewarded Daniel for his faithfulness. When the king interviewed them later on, nobody was found to be equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they were better than all of the rest, and they were elevated, and they were rewarded for this. Then Nebuchadnezzar went to sleep. He went to sleep, and he had a dream. Dun, 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 dun. And he goes around and he says, okay, I want all the wise men to come and tell me what my dream is and interpret it. And the wise men are like, well, tell us what your dream is. He's like, no, I want you to tell me what I dreamed and interpret it. And the wise men, okay, nobody can do this, dude. I don't know what you dreamed. You need to tell me what you dreamed first, then I'll interpret it for you. No. Then, no. Nebuchadnezzar's like, listen, Linda, that's not what I'm asking you. If you can't do this, I'm going to have all these wise men. Y'all ain't wise. I'm going to have y'all killed. You're all going down. You're all going to die. So when this happens, the king was super angry, and he gave this order to kill all the wise men of Babylon. Well, this guy Arioch was told to go get Daniel, and Daniel responded very tactfully and with discretion. He talked to Arioch, this captain of the king's guard guy, and said, listen, let me go and interpret this. And Daniel went to his house. He told his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, they told him all about it, and he urgently asked him, hey, listen, I need you guys to pray to God that he can show mercy and get us through this and tell us how to fix this. So they did. They all prayed, and the mystery was then revealed to Daniel in a vision at night when he was dreaming, and he gets up and he praises God for this dream. So he says, take me to Nebuchadnezzar. He goes to Nebuchadnezzar, and when he gets to Nebuchadnezzar, he tells him, look, Nebuchadnezzar said, look, are you able to tell me the dream that I had and its interpretation? And Daniel answered him this way. He said, no wise man, no medium, magician, or diviner is able to make known to the king the mystery that he asks about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has let Nebuchadnezzar know what happened in the dream. So he goes on and he interprets this dream, right? And the parts of this colossal statue that were in this dream, as you see on your screen here, to represent 4 different empires in historical succession, actually. The head represented the kingdom of Babylon between 605 and 539 BC. The chest and arms here symbolize the Medo-Persian Empire from 539 to 331 BC. The stomach and the thighs stood for the Greek Empire from 331 to 146 BC, and the legs referred to the Roman Empire from 146 BC all the way to AD 1476 in the west and 1453 AD in the east. Now the feet were a mix of iron and clay, of course, and they represented a future continuation or revival of Rome. So the material in each of these sections of the statue decreased in value as they went down the line, but they also increased in strength, however. So that's with the exception of the very feet at the bottom. The feet, they were not the strongest. They were kind of crumbling and gangly. So Daniel also described this stone that would shatter the final kingdom and grow into a mountain that filled the whole earth. And that stone would be the kingdom of God, as you see that crushing rock at the bottom. So that was pretty awesome. So once he tells them about this dream, this interpretation, Nebuchadnezzar is like, oh my goodness, dude, you are the man. I can't believe this. Your God is indeed the God of gods, the Lord of kings, the revealer of mysteries. And since you were able to reveal this mystery to me, I'm promoting you. I'm going to give you all these generous gifts, and you are going to be the ruler over the whole province of Babylon. So that puts Daniel in charge. And he also appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to manage the province of Babylon along with him, while Daniel remained in the king's court. Boom, another promotion, because both Daniel and Meshach and Shadrach and Abednego were faithful to God, even when all directions said that they probably shouldn't be. They did. They were. And God fixed it. So we get into chapter 3, right? The events of Daniel chapter 3 probably took place shortly after Daniel explained this king's dream. But some people estimate that it could have been about 10 to 12 years later. Either way, it wasn't a super long time. So here we are. Daniel was not really involved in the events here since he remained at the capital city at the king's court. But this is mostly about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and what they did. So what happened here was Nebuchadnezzar said, all right, everybody, here's what's going to happen. When you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the drum, and every kind of music, you are to fall face down and worship a gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. But whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a furnace of blazing fire. You see any problems here for these three? Certainly do. Because they're not really allowed to fall down and worship a false idol, are they? If they are only allowed to worship God, because God said you will not worship false idols, they can't do it. So the people began to notice, and they began to complain that there's these Jews who've been appointed to manage the province of Babylon, but they've kind of ignored the king's decree, and they have not been serving the God of Babylon, or the gods plural of Babylon, and they have not been worshiping this gold statue that the king set up. So they complained to the king, and this made Nebuchadnezzar furious. He was so mad. So he brings Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in, and he said, I'm going to give you one more chance. When you hear this music, get down and do your thing. And they said no. And Nebuchadnezzar was filled with rage. He says, I'm throwing you into this fiery furnace, and you're going to burn for it. So he does. He gets this furnace so hot, though, that as these guys were taking Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego into the fire, the guys that were carrying them over to the fire to throw them in, they burned up. But when Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego were in the fire, they didn't burn up. Matter of fact, one person said, look, I see 4 men, not tied, walking around in the fire unharmed, and the 4th looks like the son of the gods. Well, the 4th figure, who looked like a son of the gods, may have actually been an angel, or could have even been a pre-incarnate appearance of the Son of God, or God the Son, or Jesus, as we would call him. So I found that to be just fascinating. So they didn't. So Nebuchadnezzar yells for them to come out. They come out, and Nebuchadnezzar is like, praise to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent an angel and rescued his servants who trusted in him. Therefore, I'm going to issue this decree to any people, nation, or language who says anything offensive about God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego will be torn limb from limb, and his house made a garbage dump. So God rewards those who are loyal to him and who are faithful to him once again That is the moral of that story. Now, I read all of this, and when I get done reading all of this, I'm absolutely just, I keep thinking about George Washington Carver and one thing that he said, and I just thought I'd give you this as a little tidbit. I know I've run late tonight, but Daniel 2, chapter 2, verse 28 here, it says, "But there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets." And that reminds me of him. Now, George Washington Carver, he lived from 1864 to 1943. And he was this fabulous chemist and international fame. He worked in the field of agriculture, and much of his fame was based on his research and promotion of alternative crops to soil-depleting cotton that was in the South at the time, such as peanuts and soybeans and pecans and sweet potatoes. And he wanted poor farmers to grow these alternative crops as both a source of their own food as well as a source for other products to improve their quality of life. And now in 1921, Carver spoke in favor of a peanut tariff before the Ways and Means Committee of the United States House of Representatives. Now, at the time, it was very unusual for a black person to be called as an expert in any field. And he was very detailed, and when he talked about the potential uses of the peanut and other new crops to improve the economy of the South, at the very end of his address, the chairman of the committee asked him this question. The senator asks, "Dr. Carver, how did you learn of all these things?" And George Washington Carver answered, he said, "From an old book." And the senator said, "What book?" And Carver replied, "The Bible." And the senator says, "Now, does the Bible tell us about peanuts?" And George Washington Carver said, "No, sir, but it tells about the God who made the peanut, and I asked him to show me what to do with the peanut, and he did." That's what I got for you today. I hope this has touched you. If it has, click that like button, subscribe button. Of course, click the little jingle bell so you can get notified next time I upload a video, which will be tomorrow for another episode of the Bible in 1 Year with the Preacher's Husband. We will see you then. Peace.